Hello everybody and welcome back to another Unity 5 tutorial. After the very much unplanned ending of last session, a lot has happened. I've spent some time on a website called codeschool.com. So if you're ever interested in increasing your skills on web development, this is the place to go, really. They just had a free weekend where you could just do some of their paid courses for free, and yeah, I enjoyed that, learned a lot. I focused a bit more on JavaScript development. So yeah, that's just as a side note. Also, my videos were down for a short time. I think that happened to a lot of YouTubers right now. I figured out that this was due to yeah, YouTube or Google decided that if you don't check a certain option, which is I knew, if I understand it right, in your YouTube channel, then all your videos are just hidden. So this is a very interesting concept of doing things. But yeah, we're not here to discuss this right now. Anyways, just want to fill you in what's going on. Also been busy with work a lot. So in this session, we actually want to still finish our script. I got it open already, our NPC simple lip sync script. So we finished off in the last session with our character talking like that. And while it does the basic thing of what we're hoping for, oh, sorry, I need to get the volume down a bit, I think. Anyways, so while this does what we are hoping for, it just doesn't look nice. I hope and think you agree with me on that. So let's just take this session and refine our script a little more. So just to give you a heads up on that one, at the end it will look a bit better, but it still will not look like real talking, like real lip sync. The main reason for that is the mouth will be opening more smoothly, but you know, if you have different phonemes, you have different mouth shapes, and right now we're just opening the jar, open and close, and let the tongue jump around a bit. So there's not really, that's not how talking really works. Anyways, it will look better at the end of the session, and I think that's worth watching this session. I hope so. So let's move to our lip sync script. So what we have so far is we've gotten average volume for a certain band of frequencies. So that also means, I just want to help you to be aware of that. If you adjust the value for what range of frequencies you use, this will also greatly impact the way it looks like when your character is talking. So now we just have from 300 to 800, so the average will be way higher than if we take, let's say, something up to 10,000. The reason is because the talking frequencies are more around like 1K to 3K-ish in this range. And now setting it that high, we will have a lot of frequencies with little or no amplitude at all. And this means that the average will, of course, go down. So let's just try that quickly. No, his mouth is hardly moving. So I just want you to be aware of that, because if you play around with the settings and you're all of a sudden all confused, hey, why is my character not moving a mouth? Did I mess something up in the script? That might be the reason, those settings. So it's nothing you did wrong, it's just the way the script is set up. It's not the best way, obviously. So yeah, let's just save that again, head back to the script. And what I want to do now is add in and change around some things. How do we do that? I want to do it in a way so we can compare what we've had before and what we've had after. almost, like we'll adjust this a little bit. So in order to get started, I just want to put in a whole lot of variables, declare a lot of variables, and we're going to use them in time, and I'll explain what they're used for. So we just write a header. I call it smooth talk. And here now will be all the variables we use in this smooth talk section. So we have first a public bool, enabling smooth. Oh yeah, let's just call it like so. And we need a public int. I call it sample count. The next will be a bunch of private variables. So we need an int of floats called sample values. And we need a private int frame index. Let's set this on 0. Private float start val. And now the last line, I'm just gonna copy and paste it for 3 times. So we will have, actually let's name that differently. Let's call this jaw start, jaw end. Here we have a tongue start, tongue end. And now what we are going to do is we're gonna declare an amount of samples. I've put it on 10 now, but we need to change that or just play around with values later on. So we will take an amount of samples, and what that means is each frame we just record the value from our bend volume function, and on the 10th frame or whatever sample count we set up, we want to get an average on all those values. And in the meantime, yeah, like with the average, this will be our target value. This is end value. And in the meantime, we will move from a start value to our previous end value, and we just do a linear interpolation for that. So what else do we need? We need to set up our float. So let's see, sample values is a new float. Oh, a new float with sample count fields. And now we can jump in our function down here, in our update function. And the way we're going to set it up is, first of all, we don't need the log right now. We're just gonna smooth out value change. So this is our goal, to smooth out the mouth movement, right? So if smooth on, this is where our bool comes in. This will give us the opportunity to have a look how it looks without it and how it looks using the section we're going to write. Later on you can remove this, refactor the whole code to your heart's content when we're done. But for now I just think it's helpful for the show effect. So another thing we need to do is count up to x frames. And here what we want to do is we want to collect audio data, and we want to smooth out the jaw and the tongue movement. So this is what's going to happen in this section, and then there's a second section on the 10th frame. here we're gonna average our collected audio data. So let me see, what else do we need to change? I'm just gonna take out this one right now. I just uncommented. We don't need it right now. And actually I'm gonna just unuse my mouse movement function. We don't really need it because there's only going to be one line of code in there, so, and we're only going to call it in one place, so we will not need this function. I'd still leave it for now, but this is now the place where we actually apply our value, and it's the norm variable. Let's just clean this up as well. We don't need a variable for our multiplier. Now what you need to know about this section, let's just comment it as well. Get audio value in healthy talking range. So this would be something from 0 to let's say 0.7. So this is just an arbitrary range. It could also go to minus. I'll show you later why we don't want to do that this time. Last time we did that with using this -1 value. But what you need to know about these 3 lines of code is that it is actually fairly arbitrary what we're doing here. So we just got some values between 0.001 and 0.01, something like that. And we just want to get them in a range we can work with. But all the values we got out depend on this function. They depend on these settings, and they depend on the audio file. So if we would have a female voice with the same settings, we would get way less usable data out of it if we don't adjust our settings. So you need to know this, because if you have another audio file, the same script might just not work as you want it to. And this is a huge downside to this approach. You might want to take some time and think how you can write these lines of codes more generic, how you can, of course, it's also possible to just always use the same band volume from whatever, let's say 200 Hertz to 5000 Hertz, something like that. Would be an option. Then you could write this more set, and it's more reusable. I'm gonna leave it almost the same for now. The only thing I want to remove is the -1, because I figured out if the mouth is moving too much in the negative, then the movement is too large, then it looks not nice, especially with the smoothing we're going to write. This is why I'm going to remove the -1, which means that we're now actually looking at values above 0, and they would be between 0 and 2, but since we're smoothing it out, well, yeah, you can you can tell from my record explanation that it is all a bit yeah, trial and error what I'm doing here. If you come up with a better solution, please do so. I just want to get you started on a good lip sync script that you can use without paying lots of dollars. And if you want a good lip sync, then you just need to be prepared to spend some money anyways. So now I'm gonna encapsulate this section in an if statement. This is not necessary, but for readability, I think it's helpful. So we will have a section where our frame index is beneath our sample count, is less than a sample count, and here we have a section where our frame index equals the sample count. So this also means that in this section we need to count up our frame index at the end. And now let's do the fun stuff. The first thing we want to do is get a sample value. So okay, we just can use the norm value we've declared over here. So this will be in our function. Our initial frame index is on 0, which is good, and our count is now set to 10. So as we go in our first update function, we jump in here and we will set sample value at index 0 with our norm value. So far so good. Now this is the part basically where we collect our audio data. That's all there is to it. And then in the next part here, we want to start our smooth movement. So first we're gonna create a float. I call this perc for percentage, and this is a float, cast float to our index divided by the sample count. So we need to cast one of these two values to a float, otherwise we have an integer division, and this will always return a 0. Just need to watch out if you do division and you want to actually receive a different value than your original values are, and if you want to have a different type, I mean. So we got our percentage, and now we want to change our norm value. And here we're going to use a mathf.lerp. Lerp is the linear interpolation. We've used that before, I believe. So it takes 3 values: a start value, which would be our jar start, an end value, which would be our jar end, and a percentage, like it's called t here, but we use our percentage as a value between 0 and 1. And now what is happening, we have our jar, the state of the jar at when we start our movement. We have a target state, and the percentage, as we go through the frames, as we increase our frame index, we will go from 0 to almost 1. And this will do a linear interpolation between those two values. Okay, I see on the time that I'm going way too slow, so this session might be a bit longer. Just bear with me, please. So what we also want to do in this session, I just decided to do it this way, is put our tongue movement in here instead of leaving it out there somewhere. So let's just do here tongue movement. Here we just need another check if our expression is ready, or excuse me, our expression player. And since we're going to access our expression value. And what we want to do is expression player dot tongue up and down equals, and here we're going to do the same. We're going to use a math.lerp, and we use our tongue start value to our tongue end value with a percentage. We use the same percentage, that's okay. So that's about it for this section. So now, of course, you might wonder, well, where do I get my start and end value for tongue and jar? So this is what this part is for. Okay, so in this section, first we do is to declare a float sum. So now what we're doing is just a really standard way of averaging our values. So we're just gonna iterate through all of our sample values. And each time we add to our sum, and at the end we declare, let's say float temp, which will be, sorry, my variable names are horrible in this script. I will try to do better in another script. So now this is where we get the average. We have the amount of samples. We added the total of all the values all together, and then we divide it by the amount of values. So this will be our average. And if this average, you know what, I'm going to call it average. This is just a bit more readable. If our average is below 0, 1, what I wanted to do is just, I want our average to be set to minus 0.7 f. So why am I doing that? We now have a range between 0 and 0.7-ish. Like, well, this number is not really true, but this one is. And the thing is, on 0, if we have this expression on our, if we use the expression player and do it by hand, on 0, you can just barely see the teeth of our character. So this doesn't look nice if it's like that all the time. That's why I'm just setting the value down here to minus 0.7. So he fully closes the mouth when he's not saying something. Hope that makes sense. So now our frame index will be set to 0. Why am I doing that? Because here we continuously add up to our frame index. But once we've hit our sample count, we would not jump in this if statement anymore, in this if block. So in order to start afresh, we just set our frame index back to 0, which also enables us to refill another batch of sample values. So we reset our index, and our start value, or our jar start, will be our last end value, and our end value, jar end, will be our average. So I hope that makes sense as well. We're moving from start to end. So by the time we reach the sample count, our frame index, in the case of 10, we have a frame index of 10. So by the time we reach 10, we actually reach the end in our math lerp, because our percentage would have gone up to 1. So we reach the end, so we say, okay, our next start will be this end, and our new end will be the average value, what we just in those 10 frames collected and averaged. So yeah, and we're gonna do exactly the same for the tongue. So tongue start is tongue end, and tongue end equals, here we do it a bit different. Well, not entirely. As we look back, we've had here random range from minus 0 to 8 to 0.8. Let's just copy and paste that. I've just, again, arbitrarily decided to go with minus 1 and 1 after all. So this will just pick a random value, and since we have these two lines, it will actually smoothly move to this value, and we get the sense of a somewhat natural tongue movement. So I think it's time to test our script. I hope I didn't forget anything. No errors, that's always a good sign. And now let's just check what happens.
The bird canoe slid on the smooth planks. Glue the sheet to the dark blue background. It's easy to tell.
So this is still not doing anything. I hope you noticed that one. It is still doing the normal way we've just had it before, but now I hit our smooth on bool.
The birch canoe slid on the smooth planks. Glue the sheet to the dark blue background. It's easy to
So you can see the mouth movement is fairly slow, and this is due to our settings. So let's have a look how we can increase this. First of all, I want to lower this value because he's opening the mouth too wide right now. And here, the higher our number is, of course, the slower the movements will be, because we will take more samples. And so the lower the number is, the faster the movements will be.
The birch canoe slid on the smooth planks. Glue the sheet to the dark blue background. It's easy to...
So that was already a bit better. Somewhat like that. So you can play around with those values, and again.
The birch canoe slid on the smooth planks. Glue the sheet to the dark blue background.
As soon as I bump up this value, which I'm gonna do now, it will change everything again.
The birch canoe slid on the smooth planks. Glue the sheet to the dark blue background.
So I hope you can see that the tongue is moving sometimes a bit randomly in the background, and this gives it at least a little bit more realistic look, if at all. Now I need to get this up again, and I think that will be it for now.
The birch canoe slid on the smooth planks. Glue the sheet to the dark blue background.
So if you're a bit further away,
Easy to tell the depth of a well.
that is actually quite cool.
These days, a chicken leg is a rare dish.
So I think that already gives it a whole lot more realistic view, or however you want to call it. Anyways, before we finish this session, I know it's a bit longer already, but I still want to clean up our script at least a little bit. First of all, we now really do not need this function anymore. And I want to take this entire section out, just have this separate. So I'm going to create a function called smooth talk. It returns a float, and it will take a float called norm val. This makes our refactoring a bit easier. Return norm val. So in this function, we just gonna play around with our norm value, because that's actually all we do in this entire section. We just play around with that value. So this will enable you to say, I don't like what's happening here. This is not the way I want to smooth out my values or get my talking more realistic. So then you can just replace this function with a different self-written function if you like. So smooth talk, and here we pass in our norm value. Another thing I want to do is I just want to make sure that our character is not constantly moving the tongue, because right now, even if there's no audio playing, since we are using, where is it here, a random range value, this will happen every 10 frames or whatever value we used for our sample count. So I want to avoid this. So let's declare another variable. It's a private bool called isTalking, and we set this to false. And in our start function, which is also a big mess as I see that now. Anyways, I'm gonna set it to true. So let's just at least clean that up a bit. So why am I doing this? Basically right now our character is talking right on spot as we hit play. Of course, this is not desired behavior in a game. You don't want all your NPCs to start talking simultaneously when you hit play. This is why these two lines will move somewhere else in a different function later on. So in the next session, we will actually clean up our script, our test UMA script, and set it up in a way so the movement and the talking and everything will just work. And there we will also move this one to a different function so we can actually decide when our UMA is gonna start to talk. So this is why we set it to true here as we start playing something. Those two always need to go in sync. And here that means we will have an if statement. So this statement will take two values. The first one is if our audio is playing, and the next one is our is talking value. So let's just do it like that. So this means only if audio is playing and only if is talking is true, all this is being done. Now we still have the problem if we now end, then our character would stop with a value of 0 for the jar open close movement. That doesn't look that pretty if he's showing the teeth all after. And another problem is actually no, that would not be anymore. Like I was just thinking maybe our value is locked because we reapply it every frame, but we don't, since we would not go in this if anymore. So that's not a problem, but still I want to adjust our the position or the state, how open the jar is. So we need another statement here. If no audio is playing anymore, and we're still talking, well, we're not, the character's not talking anymore, but the variable is saying so, then here we set our is talking variable to false, and we are gonna copy this entire statement and set it to minus 0.7 or minus 1. Let's just close that mouth. So you just need to have a look which one looks nicest to you. Minus 1 might be actually a bit too tight for a natural relaxed face expression. I don't know. Sorry, I didn't check that. But now this will enable our character to talk and not talk. It doesn't change anything to what we've done before. Let's see if we can just get a showcase here.
Rice is often served in round bowls. The juice of lemons makes fine punch.
Can I adjust this talking speed? No.
The hogs were fed.
Anyways, he will be done talking soon.
4 hours of steady work.
So this is it for our lip sync script. I'm not gonna do much more with this version of the script. As I said, later on maybe I have a better idea. So this is how the mouth looks when it's fully closed now. Yeah, I hope you can use this script. It still doesn't look fully realistic, but I think it's good enough. And you can always create your own settings here, or take another of those parameters in your script and adjust it somehow. Like another one would be, for example, the narrow pucker. With that one you can let's see if we can just do this. Jaw open, and like this is more like an O shape of mouth. Okay, that looks a bit retarded, sorry. But you know, you could do something with that if you use that value randomly as well and just apply it once in a while, then it will look even more realistic, even though it might not be the appropriate mouth shape for the phoneme that is spoken, but it just gives your lip sync a bit more dynamic, a bit more realism. So this was it for this session. As I said, in the next session we're gonna clean up. So see you then, and thanks for watching. Bye.